Getting into our DM question of the week.
Alrighty.
So our question is there a right or wrong way to DM?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Mostly
That's our answer. All right.
Yeah. Well, okay, so to answer this question, so DMs think, okay, I must come up with a fun way of inducing to make my players feel having fun, right? So they do all this stuff and they find out that like their players hated it. Even though they could have just said, "All right, players, what do you guys want to do?" Just that simple, just seconds.
Oh, so you're talking about how a player... Well, before we get to that, I think we need to talk about what the goal of D&D is. And so I think what you're saying it is, which is almost an assumption, is for it to be fun.
Yeah. Also give a good story. That's why.
Give a good story. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make it fun. Yeah. Fun is basically...
I mean, the basic answer is for everyone to have fun, but it is a little bit more complex than that. So I would say, is there a right or wrong way to DM?
Yes.
Yes, I think there is, actually. And not just about having fun, because you can... Saying there's a wrong way is always tough, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you look at a painting or something, it may look terrible, but can you really say it's a bad painting? I mean, someone might like it, so, it's subjective. But there are definitely ways to be better at DMing. You may have lots of fun, but you could be having a lot more fun if you did this.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's probably what our DM questions of the week will be focusing on most of the time. It's not necessarily making you... It's not making you do it the right way, but it's making you better at what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, I'd say the right way to DM is to make sure you and the players are having fun. Don't forget yourself. You also want to have fun. I think this question almost seems dumb when you talk about other games, right? But D&D is kind of special in that you have the games being fluid. Because if you're playing like Risk or chess or something, the goal is not to just have fun. Someone might actually hate a game of... But I personally hate games of Catan. I just...
I cannot play that game. It's so annoying. But like, I just want to win. Like it's so. When some video games that people say, "Oh, I hate this game," but like it drives you to say, "I want to win," though. So it's like
right. And so most games you can't mess with the rules. Like to play a game right, it means you're playing the rules right. If you have fun, it's irrelevant. Yeah, like you just gotta play the game. But D&D, it's not about winning. It's very interesting in that sense. There is no winning. It's about just having fun. And so when you're just having fun and not focused on winning, the rules are very malleable, right?
Right.
But it gets interesting when you talk about how malleable can they get before you're not playing D&D anymore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting topic. Probably not one to get into right now.
Yeah.
But it's relevant to this question. Another answer I have to this question that is not just about having fun and maybe is a little more accurate is to fulfill whatever expectations you set in your session 0. So in session 0, you probably are saying our goal is to have fun. So that's a given. But you might also be saying we want to play a game of high role playing or something. Or we want no one to be on their phones, right? So if you pull out your phone... No, you're not playing D&D right anymore because you all agree not to do that. You know what I mean? So I'd say session 0 is kind of where you define what good and bad play will be. And that can be anything you want it to be. But you kind of want to get a consensus.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's almost a better answer than just having fun. Because maybe the goal isn't to have fun. Maybe the goal is to, like, win. Like, maybe you want to play D&D in a sense where it's like, we want to have a wizard fight a fighter, you know what I mean, and see who wins. And that is, in a sense, playing D&D. It's just a little story of a fight. You know what I mean? And your goal might be to win. So I think that's a better answer. Yeah. So, I mean, anything else to say?
I mean, no, I totally agree with everything you said. I mean, big thing, just do what your players want, but also making your own rules. D&D is literally all about your imagination.
Yeah.
So literally, you can make it anything you want. So you can make it this wrong or this right. So like in your sense, there is a right or wrong way, basically. Yeah.
And I do want to throw out in that is some people will change the rules so much to that they're like not even in a fantasy place anymore. Like that's pretty common. Or
Yeah, no,
like I played a Wild West one. You've played that.
Yeah. I mean, one time when we played in New York one.
Right.
It's like with like machine guns.
And so you can do that in D&D. And to say that that's wrong is you probably can't completely say it's wrong, but I would also just like to say that there's probably no reason to do that because you can go and play a different role-playing game that is made for that. There's no machine guns in D&D. You know what I mean? It's not really a reason to bring one. That's not what the point of D&D is. So I think when you're changing things that drastically, you're not necessarily playing D&D wrong. You're just probably not playing D&D at all. You're playing something completely separate.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. But, like, another thing that's cool about D&D is, like, making your own things. So, like, there is guns in D&D that have, like, stuff, but they're, like, muskets, so they're not, like, machine guns. So you're like, what happens if you get shot by, like, 3 bullets? You know, like, that's a little hard.
It's definitely, like, a subjective line to be drawn.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't see, like, how much just, like, like a gauze cannon reloading, firing 5 times around. It's like, well, okay. So, it's like, that's hard.
Most people don't want to play D&D where they have, like, their half-elf fighter, which wouldn't be the best combo, but, and then the DM pulls out, like, Mecha Godzilla walks up, or, a Transformer. It's like, wait a second.
Well, in actual Dungeons and Dragons, there are, like, constructs. So,
Yeah, there's constructs.
Yeah, but
But you don't want Master Chief showing up, right?
Right. You don't want...
Now, again, this comes back to Session 0. Whatever you define as Session 0 seems to be how you play. But yeah. DMing right or wrong is just about balancing what every player and you want to get out of it.
Exactly.
And, yeah, so in future episodes, we'll answer questions on how you can actually do that.
Right, yeah, no, but, like, yeah, so, this question is really up to you as the DM.
Yeah.
So what's wrong and right for you?
But it's also up to the players.
And players
in session
yeah.
In Session 0 is where you talk about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Alrighty.